This video is going to walk through auditions. When a new person introduces themselves and expresses an interest in being a part of the worship team, what's your next step? What's the best way to set it up? What do you talk about during the audition? What's the best way to evaluate skill level? How do you make a decision and deliver that decision? If it's a yes, what's the best way to help them integrate with the team? All this and more will be answered in this video. Here we go. If you're planning to be a worship leader for any length of time, you'll likely have musicians and singers come along that are interested in joining the team. In my opinion, for the sake of the current team and the congregation, you should always set up an audition for possible new recruits. There are many ways to approach auditions, but I'll share how we do things at our church to give you some ideas. The most common way I meet new potential team members is when they come and speak with me after a Sunday service. Oftentimes, they'll introduce themselves, let me know they're a singer or what instrument they play, and express an interest in being a part of the team. At that point, I will get their name and contact info and follow up with them within a week. I start by having them fill out an online audition form that asks a few preliminary questions. Once the form is completed, I'll follow up so we can nail down a time to get together, and I'll also verbalize what they can expect to happen during the audition so they can prepare appropriately. I set up auditions through Planning Center. Depending on what the potential team member claims to be able to play or sing, I'll choose 2 or 3 songs that progressively stretch them in different ways to get a better idea of their current skill level. For example, if it's a singer, I'll choose the first song for them to just sing melody on. The second song, they'll sing harmonies, and maybe the third will be some combination of both melodies and harmonies. For a drummer, I'd choose a really simple 4/4 song, and then I'd likely move to a more complicated beat in 4/4, and then we'd move into something in 3/4 timing, all along evaluating use of fills, alignment with the metronome, and general comfort and proficiency on their instrument. So, choosing these songs and sending out invites early is a great way to set up those who are auditioning for success. My preference when holding auditions is to do it with another person or two if possible. This provides built-in accountability, especially if you're auditioning someone who is of the opposite gender, and other opinions will be valuable to compare notes after the audition. That said, I've probably done at least half of the auditions by myself, so it can definitely be done. I just prefer a team if I've got the right people in place to help out. I realize different church contexts have different postures with this next part, but for us there are 2 very important elements of the audition that we'll talk about before we get to the musical part. The first part of every audition for us covers a few bases. As I'm wanting to get to know this new person better, I'll ask them to share their story with me. I'd like to get to know who they are, including spouse and kids if they have a family. I want to hear their testimony of how they came to Christ and of their musical journey as well. I'll give them the freedom to separate these subjects or weave them all together. It's always fun to hear people's stories. I'm also listening carefully to the testimony part. Again, you may have a different posture at your church, but for us, it's very important that every worship team member is a Christ follower, not just a skilled musician. The next part may or may not be important to you, but I also ask the questions, how long have you been a part of the church? And do you consider this your church home? These questions are important to us because we're looking for disciples of Christ to be on the team that value the local church, not just skilled musicians that bounce from church to church filling gaps. Now, on occasion, I brought in friends from other churches to help out, and that's fine because I know that they're plugged into their local church. I just think, and this is a personal conviction, that the church musician that wanders from church to church without getting involved in small groups and other areas of accountability and encouragement within the context of the local church puts themselves in a dangerous place in regard to their spiritual walk. We all need others looking into and speaking into each other's lives. And if that's not in place, it's easy to walk into dangerous blind spots. The question is basically asking, do you value the local church and are we in this together? Relationships within the team are a big deal. After those questions are asked and answered, we'll then move on to the musical stuff. I've done some auditions with just myself and an acoustic guitar, others with a partial team, and more recently I've used the multi-tracks I spoke of in the previous video. So far, I like this method the best in most circumstances. It's easy for you to mute the particular instrument on the multi-track that the potential team member is playing and allow them to play with the recording of the full band. I'll usually give a little bit of feedback along the way during the musical audition as well. It would be a little awkward if they finished the song and I said nothing. I try to be honest, but careful not to be too harsh if it didn't go well. In fact, my goal is to encourage them and build their confidence as much as possible, because for many people this is a very nervous thing to expose themselves to musical critique, especially if this is the first time they've ever attempted to audition for a team. If I'm doing the audition by myself, I usually know by the end of the audition if it's a good fit or not. If everything went great, then it's easy to invite them in. If some things didn't go as well, I'll give them something specific to work on before auditioning again. This is sometimes difficult, but truth and love is still the best thing. If I did the audition with another person or a team, I will consult the team afterwards and send an email of response to the person auditioning within a day or two. Once someone has been invited onto the team, I'll invite them to visit us during a midweek rehearsal. This could look differently depending on your situation. If you already have a full team, have the new member shadow the person that plays the same instrument as them for 1 week. This is a low-pressure, get-to-know-the-team and our way of doing things sort of approach. Other times, you may have just recruited someone who is going to help fill an important role, and you're excited to get them involved as soon as possible. In this case, you may invite them to a midweek rehearsal and have them immediately jump in and join the team. Ongoing encouragement and input is valuable for all team members, and especially new ones. Newbies are trying to find their place. Even if they have some previous experience, every church has a slightly different culture they will be trying to adapt to. Listen carefully to their contribution to the team the first few rehearsals and be diligent to give guidance along the way. This minimizes some of the mystery for them of knowing how their contribution is being received.